All right, stop scrolling, because what I'm about to share will blow your mind. Edward Snowden, yes, the whistleblower who shook governments worldwide, made a bold prediction about Islam that literally left Joe Rogan speechless. And trust me, when Rogan's quiet, you know it's deep. But here's the kicker. Hidden inside this moment is a powerful lesson for your life, your faith, and your future. So buckle up, because we're breaking it down into 4 epic takeaways. You know what's fascinating about Edward Snowden. The guy risked his entire life for one thing, truth. He could have stayed silent. He could have enjoyed comfort, protection, maybe even a quiet little life somewhere in the shadows, but he didn't. He made a choice. And that choice shook the most powerful governments on the planet. Now, you might be wondering, why does that matter here? Because the very core of what Snowden stood for, truth, is exactly what Islam has been calling people to since day one. Truth isn't just encouraged in our faith, it's commanded. It's the backbone of everything. And when I heard Snowden predicting the unstoppable rise of Islam, I couldn't help but think it makes perfect sense. Because truth doesn't stay hidden forever, let's be real. You can cover the sun with your hand for a moment, but eventually the light breaks through. That's Islam. The Prophet Muhammad once said, "Truth leads to righteousness, and righteousness leads to paradise." Short, simple, clear. But if you really think about it, it's explosive. It means every lie, every mask, every layer of falsehood, it all crumbles eventually, and Snowden, in his own way, was proof of that. He had access to all the secrets, all the classified files, all the stuff designed to stay buried. But what happened? It came out. The truth refused to stay hidden. Now here's where it gets deep. Snowden wasn't just talking about politics this time. He pointed at the future of Islam itself. Think about the weight of that. A man who exposed the hidden skeletons of the most powerful nations is saying, "This faith, this truth, it cannot be stopped." That's not just a statement. That's a reality we're watching unfold right now. Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. Every single year, more people are embracing it, not because of flashy marketing, not because of billion-dollar campaigns, but because the truth has a way of cutting through noise. And let's be honest, we live in a world of noise, TikTok trends, news headlines, viral scandals, endless distractions. And yet, in the middle of all that, someone picks up a Quran, reads a verse, and boom, it hits their heart like lightning. That's not hype. That's truth at work. That's the light breaking through the cracks. You can censor it. You can attack it. You can mock it. But you can't kill it. Just like Snowden couldn't keep the truth buried in those files, the world can't bury Islam. But here's the twist. It's not just about Islam rising in the world. It's about truth rising in your own life. See, a lot of us treat truth like that old box in the attic we don't want to open. We hide it behind excuses, behind fear, behind comfort. Maybe the truth is you know you've drifted from your faith. Maybe the truth is you're not living up to the standards you once promised yourself. Maybe the truth is you've been chasing the wrong things, thinking they'll fill the hole inside you. We all have that hidden file in our hearts, the one we hope nobody opens. But just like Snowden showed us, the truth has a way of getting out. You can run from it for a while, but sooner or later, it's staring you in the face. And when that moment comes, what will you do? That's the real question. Will you face it? Or will you bury it deeper, hoping no one notices? Because here's the thing. Truth doesn't just expose, it heals. It frees. The Quran tells us, say, the truth has come and falsehood has vanished. When the truth comes into your life, falsehood can't hold on anymore. Lies start to fall apart. Fear loses its grip. And suddenly, you realize you're lighter, freer, stronger. That's why Snowden's words hit so hard, because deep down, every single one of us knows the truth inside us. We just fight it sometimes. We bury it under busyness, under doubt, under the weight of what people might think. But truth doesn't care about opinions, it doesn't care about trends, it doesn't care about politics. Truth just is, and Islam is that truth, pure, unshakable, eternal. So maybe the real takeaway isn't just that Islam is rising globally. Maybe the deeper takeaway is this: if truth can't be stopped out there, then why are you stopping it in here? If Islam is shining brighter every day around the world, why are you dimming it inside yourself? Don't hide your truth, don't silence it, don't bury it, because one way or another it's coming out, and when it does, it will change everything. The only question left is, will you have the courage to face it now? Snowden made a point that hits harder than most people realize. He said lies don't last, they collapse, and if you think about it, that's not just some smart observation about politics. It's a universal law. Lies look powerful in the moment. They look polished, loud, and untouchable. But give it time, and they eat themselves alive. And this is where Islam comes in, because the Quran has already told us in words that are crystal clear. Truth has come, and falsehood has vanished. Surely falsehood is bound to vanish. It doesn't say maybe. It doesn't say sometimes. It says bound to vanish, guaranteed, and you see it everywhere if you pay attention. Think about history for a second. Every empire built on falsehood eventually fell. The Romans thought they would last forever, yet their idols crumbled, their system collapsed, and the truth of Islam eventually spread through lands they once ruled. The Persians thought they were unstoppable, yet their arrogance against God tore them down. Fast forward to the modern world, how many systems promised freedom, equality, happiness, only to leave people empty, divided, and searching for something real. Communism came and went. Colonialism rose and fell. Dictators appear and vanish. Every single one of them tried to play God, and every single one of them failed. Why? Because you can build lies as tall as skyscrapers, but lies are still cardboard, the first real storm, and it all comes crashing down. Snowden wasn't just talking about governments. He was talking about a cycle we all live in. Lies don't hold. You can lie to yourself, to people around you, to the whole world. But sooner or later it cracks. It leaks, it collapses, and you're left standing in the rubble, realizing the foundation was fake all along. That's why Islam's message is so powerful. It gives you stone instead of cardboard. It gives you a foundation that storms can't rip apart. And that's the challenge. Are you building your life on cardboard or stone? Cardboard looks nice, let's be honest. It's cheap, quick, and flashy. It's the Instagram version of life. Filters, angles, highlights. But the problem is, cardboard doesn't last. Stone, though, stone takes work. Stone takes patience. It doesn't always look shiny right away, but when the storm hits, and trust me, storms always come, the stone stands. Islam teaches us to build on stone, on truth, on honesty, on principles that don't shift with trends. That's why it survives generation after generation. That's why people who discover it today still feel the same power someone felt 400 years ago. It's the same stone, and maybe that's why Snowden's prediction about Islam landed so heavy, because he's seen firsthand how fragile lies are. He's seen governments with unlimited resources scramble to hide what's real. He's seen entire institutions collapse under the weight of their own dishonesty, and here he is pointing at Islam saying this. This is the truth that can't be silenced. That's not random. That's someone who's studied the storm and realized what survives. But let's bring it closer. Forget empires and politics for a second. Look at your own life. Where are the lies? Where are the cardboard walls you've set up? Maybe it's telling yourself you'll change one day. Maybe it's pretending you're fine when you're not. Maybe it's living for other people's approval instead of God's. Those are lies too, and just like governments, they collapse. And when they collapse, it hurts. But here's the good news. When falsehood falls, it makes space for truth. Sometimes losing what's fake is the best thing that can happen because it clears the ground for what's real, and that's why Islam keeps rising. Every time a lie collapses, people start searching, and when they search, they find light. The Quran doesn't just expose falsehood, it replaces it. It gives you clarity when everything else is chaos. That's why so many people who convert to Islam say the same thing. I felt peace. Not because they became perfect overnight, but because for the first time they weren't standing on cardboard anymore. They found stone, they found truth. So maybe the question Snowden really pushes us to ask is simple. What are you standing on? What are you building your life on? Because no matter how tall the tower, if it's made of lies, it's going down. The only thing that lasts is truth. And the only question is whether you'll be holding on to it when the storm comes. When you think about Edward Snowden, one word keeps coming up: courage. Imagine knowing that the second you hit send on that classified file, your entire life as you knew it was over. No going back, no safety net. Just you, your conscience, and the storm that's about to hit. That's not a small thing. That's not just bravery in a movie. That's real, raw courage. The kind that makes your heart pound because you know the price could be everything. And yet he did it. He stood up against giants, against systems that looked untouchable, against powers that could erase people with the push of a button. And when I think of that, I can't help but see the echoes of what Islam has always called us to, standing firm even when you're the only one standing. Think about Prophet Ibrahim, a young man surrounded by idol worshippers, even his own father carving those idols with his hands. The whole city bowed to statues, and here he was, one voice daring to ask, "Why do you worship what cannot hear, cannot see, and cannot help you?" Do you understand how insane that looked? A boy standing against a nation, a son standing against his father, and yet he stood. That's courage, not because he wasn't afraid, but because he trusted Allah more than he trusted his fear. Or think of Musa. He had fled Egypt, started a quiet life, probably thought his days of trouble were behind him. And then Allah commands him, go back to the place you escaped from, go back to the man who wants you dead, and not just to visit. No, go back and challenge Pharaoh himself. Imagine the weight of that. A shepherd walking into the palace of the most arrogant ruler on earth, the man who declared, I am your Lord, the Most High. That's not just courage, that's courage fueled by faith. And when you line that up with Snowden, you realize something. Courage is timeless. The faces change, the stories shift, the battles look different, but the core remains the same. It's always one person against something massive. It's always one voice daring to break the silence, and it always comes down to this question: who do you trust more, your fear or your God? Snowden trusted that telling the truth was more important than staying safe. Ibrahim trusted that breaking idols was more important than blending in. Musa trusted that delivering the message was more important than protecting himself. And you, what about you? Because courage isn't just for prophets or whistleblowers, it's for everyday life. It's for that moment when you're tempted to compromise your values just to fit in. It's for that time when you know you should speak up, but you're scared of what people will say. It's for the decision to pray on time, to stand by your principles, to choose the harder road when the easier one is calling your name. Let's be real, fear is loud. It whispers in your ear, telling you you'll lose respect. You'll lose friends, you'll lose comfort. Fear loves to exaggerate. Fear makes the shadow look bigger than the monster. But courage is trusting that Allah is greater than all of it. Courage is remembering the words of the Quran, so do not fear them, but fear me if you are true believers. Courage is that shift in perspective where you stop asking, what will they do to me? And start asking, what will Allah think of me? Snowden had no guarantee of what would happen. He didn't know if anyone would believe him. He didn't know if he'd ever see freedom again, but he knew this. Staying silent was worse than speaking up. That's the heart of courage, not certainty of outcome, but clarity of purpose. You don't know how people will react. You don't know what you'll lose, but you know what's right, And when you step into that, something amazing happens. The fear doesn't vanish, but it shrinks. The problem doesn't disappear, but it looks smaller compared to the one who controls it. And maybe that's the real point Snowden's story pushes us toward. What fear is holding you hostage right now? Is it the fear of failing if you try? The fear of being judged if you change? The fear of losing if you let go? Whatever it is, ask yourself, do I trust my fear more than my Lord? Because the moment you flip that, the moment you put Allah above your fear, that's when courage is born, and courage changes everything. So yes, Snowden's stand was about politics, but the deeper lesson is about faith. It's about realizing that every single one of us is called to moments where we either bow to fear or rise with courage. And the legacy of every prophet, every reformer, every brave soul who chose truth tells us the same thing. When you stand with Allah, no power on earth can truly break you. The only question left is, what fear are you finally ready to stop bowing to? When Snowden spoke about legacy, he wasn't talking about fame or likes or followers. He wasn't talking about how many people knew your name while you were alive. He was talking about what remains after you're gone. The mark you leave, the story people tell about you when you're not in the room. And honestly, that hit me hard because Islam has been teaching that from the very beginning. Your legacy isn't about your bank account or your reputation. It's about your stance. What side of truth did you stand on? What values did you live by when it was inconvenient, when it was risky, when it cost you something? Think about it. Pharaoh had wealth, power, armies, palaces, monuments. The world trembled before him, but what's his legacy today? A tyrant, a man whose body was preserved not to be honored, but to stand as a warning until the end of time. Now shift the picture. Look at Musa, a man who grew up poor, chased out of his homeland, constantly tested. What's his legacy? A prophet remembered with honor, a man whose story inspires billions. Legacy isn't about what you collect. It's about what you stand for, and Snowden understood that. That's why he said history will remember what side you were on. And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because that same question comes knocking at our door. What side are you on in the daily choices, the small decisions, the quiet moments? What are you leaving behind? Because whether you realize it or not, you're writing your story right now. Every prayer you choose to make, every lie you refuse to tell, every act of kindness no one sees, it's all being recorded. And one day, when the noise dies down, that's your legacy. That's what's left of you. The Prophet Muhammad didn't leave behind mountains of gold. He didn't leave armies of wealth. What he left was a message, a light that spread across the world. That was his legacy. And even his companions understood that deeply. Look at Abu Bakr. What was his legacy? Standing firm at the most painful moment in history, when the Prophet passed away, and the entire community felt like collapsing. He stood up and reminded them, whoever worships Muhammad, know that Muhammad has died, but whoever worships Allah, Allah is ever living. That moment, that clarity became his legacy. Or think of Umar, whose legacy was justice so strong that even the enemies of Islam respected it. Or Uthman, remembered for generosity, or Ali, remembered for knowledge and courage. Each of them left behind something that outlived them. That's what legacy is. And here's the thing. We sometimes think legacy is for big people. Leaders, prophets, scholars, but that's not true. Every single one of us is leaving a legacy right now. Parents leave it in their children. Teachers leave it in their students. Friends leave it in the way they show up for each other. The Prophet said, when a person dies, their deeds come to an end except three: ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge, or a child who prays for them. That's legacy. It doesn't matter if the world knew your name. It matters if your impact lives on. Snowden reminded us that history remembers what side you stood on. Islam reminds us that eternity remembers what side you stood on. That's bigger than politics. That's bigger than headlines. That's your soul, and it forces a question. What story are you writing right now? If today was your last day, would your legacy be one of courage, of faith, of truth? Or would it be comfort, compromise, and excuses? Because one day your story will be told. The only thing you control is how it's written, and let's get real. We don't need perfection to leave a legacy. We just need consistency. The prophet said the most beloved deeds to Allah are the small, consistent ones, even if they're little. That means your legacy isn't some giant, flashy moment. It's built brick by brick, choice by choice, every time you show up for prayer, every time you speak truth when it's easier to stay quiet, every time you forgive when you could have held a grudge. That's how legacy is made, through the daily grind of faithfulness. Snowden risked everything because he believed silence was betrayal. And isn't that what Islam has always taught us? That you can't just go through life chasing shadows, pretending you'll live forever. You have to choose, you have to stand, and your stand becomes your story. Your story becomes your legacy, and your legacy, that's what you meet Allah with. So here's the real challenge. Stop asking, what will people remember about me? And start asking, what will Allah remember about me? Because when the dust settles, when the likes fade, when the followers move on, the only legacy that matters is the one written in the book of deeds. And once you see that clearly, the choice becomes simple. The legacy you leave is the life you live. The only question is, what will your story say?